we're starting hot with 0 viewers.
Yeah, well, they can hear us too, so.
Nice. I love it.
We're fancy here. All right. Welcome, everybody, to Think Outside the Blocks, your weekly official Brickworld live stream. We are here, of course, as always, with Ben Hauger. How are you doing this week, Ben?
I'm doing excellent, Mark. I got the camera issues that we had last week sorted out, so we
Yeah.
are ready to show some mocks this week.
Yeah, maybe we will have no camera issues, no no audio issues, and kind of be professional live streamers this week. You think that'll happen?
As professional amateur as we can be.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It's
didn't.
holiday weekend, but we're still building.
It's been quite a weekend.
No,
I gotta
yeah,
say,
no rest for the wicked.
no rest for the wicked at all. I must be very wicked because I've had zero rest and a bit of a sunburn. And again, I'm in the tank top, so you guys can see my crazy shoulder hair and my sunburn. But I think outside the blocks. Why do we call it this? We call it this because we're trying to encourage people to think outside the rigid medium of Lego that's rather blocky and trying to think outside of our mental blocks. But Ben, you know what? I was thinking Lego's not quite so blocky anymore, is it?
Yeah, that's true. I would be curious to know, and I'm sure there's an official count on this. How many elements Lego is currently producing, regardless of color, just the number of elements.
Yeah.
It has to be in the thousands for sure, but I couldn't tell you how many
Yeah.
elements are being produced currently.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see also like which ones are not rectangular.
Yeah, yep, and how many are no longer in production?
Yeah, it's probably a vast
You know,
majority. I mean, I think that's what happens a lot when like it's more Matt than me that does this, more Matt than I that does this. Yeah, there we go. But when we show people pictures of the stuff that I built or stuff from the shows, people are always like, are those Legos? Because I only remember having the square blocks. I'm like, you don't remember much because Gen Xers at least started at least having slopes and tiles and other sorts of pieces in the early
right?
80s. Started making different shapes and they create new shapes all the time. I think one of the things about like curves and roundness in Lego pieces is we get kind of we don't always get all the radii that we want. We don't always get like the full spectrum of like different steps of say like curved slopes, for example. And they seem to be
Mm-hmm.
introducing them more and more. Like we've got the 2x2 round tile, round quarter tile, and the 3x3 round quarter tile, and the 4x4, so they all fit together. And now we've got even the 1x1 quarter. Um, but we wish they would just make every degree and just make every piece we dream of. But I don't think they have time for that or capacity. Um, so let's start with you as usual because I'm actually, as you can see, my camera is actually on the screen because my desk space has gotten very cramped. So once I set up, I'm gonna have to move the camera over, and then we won't be able to see my face anymore. I know everyone's gonna be really sad about that. Do you want me to take you out while you adjust your camera?
Yeah, sure. I'll do
Awesome.
that quick.
I will go over the comments that we have in the chat. Oh, there's none. So I'm just gonna sit here and talk about Lego and the week that we had building. It's been one of those frustrating weeks where you know that you're panic building because Brickworld Chicago is coming right up. It's right around the corner. We only have a couple weeks left to finish everything. And I keep getting lost in the weeds. I keep trying to put in too many details, trying to make everything perfect. And there's just no time for this. So I didn't make a lot of progress this week. And it's gonna get to the point soon where I'm just like throw bricks on it, like the throw bricks on it phase. We just gotta make sure we bring what we planned on bringing, even if it doesn't look exactly how we wanted it. We're just gonna make a thing, and it may be like a far cry from what we see in our imaginations, but it'll be something. So getting ready to dive into the throw bricks on it phase, and it looks like we've got Ben's first build up tonight. It looks like yours and Miles' dragon attacking the storehouse build.
Yeah. There was something I came across today, looking for some pieces for
Mm-hmm.
the Eurobricks collab that I
Mm-hmm.
thought was really interesting. So one of the things that I thought we could talk about, even if quite briefly, is where do you start when you're doing a mock? Some people ask, do you sketch out what you're planning to build?
Yeah.
Do you have, uh, some reference material? Do you have a dream board? An ideas board?
Yeah.
I suppose an ideas board is probably more accurate, right? To
Perhaps.
to do this, or do you just sort of go? And when I was sorting today, looking for something for the Eurobricks collab, which is what I've spent most of my time doing, so I don't have much to show for that until we get to the actual Brickworld Chicago show. Though, is I found the sketch that my son did.
Yeah.
How's that coming through?
That looks great. Yeah, I can see it.
The sketch my son did for the storehouse.
No, it's
And
good.
so, right, I mean, this
Yeah.
is where we started, right? And this is where we are now. We're still missing the dragon, but we have the storehouse. You can also see in his sketch he has a little S above the door for storehouse.
Of course. Yeah, you mentioned
And
before that he wanted that. Yeah, and he put it in
yep, so
the
we
sketch.
we still got to get that in there.
Yeah.
And then the dragon itself, and this is sort of the idea he has for what he wants his dragon to look like.
Yeah, it looks like it has
Um,
a chair on it, or is that the writer?
I believe that is a
Like a
chair of
like
some
a
variety.
yeah, like a writing harness.
Yep,
I want
yep.
the dragon to
So
look
we've
exactly like that. I love that dragon so much.
he is very cute. He actually explained to me, he's a fan of the DreamWorks Dragon series, and
Yeah.
he explained to me that he indeed wanted it to kind of look like the Gronkle in that
Okay.
show, which is
Yeah.
sort of this chubby dragon. I think his name is Meatlug, where he is, kind of just got this big head, bulbous body, single shape to him. That is what he was going for. So we are going to try to make it look something like this while we're working on it.
I hope so.
But I thought that was cool that I happened to come across that sketch of his while I was working down here, um, just to sort of get a little discussion around, what people do or what they do to start. I know I've attended at Brickworld Chicago a seminar you've done
Yeah.
on on finding inspiration, and I know you oftentimes are far more involved in sort of picking your inspiration than this.
Yes.
So what do you typically do when you're finding inspiration for a build? There you go. There's a Gronkle.
That's a grongle for sure. Well, I have talked about this on the live stream actually. I went through part of that presentation you're referring to, building from imagination, which wasn't so much about building from imagination as it was about taking inspiration from other sources and turning them into your own imagination. And so it is like it is kind of a topic that I'd like to revisit at some point if I had time to do presentations anymore. Um, which I don't tend to nowadays have that ability, but I can find it and we can do it between our builds. Kind of my process of sketching. Now, again, I'm sure anybody who's watched this live stream before is getting very tired of hearing about this, but my basement flooded this year. Um, and the reason that still has some significance is I have not been able to find my pencils. So as I've been trying to build out my the lagoon area of my orchard and build the waterfalls and like the series of pools that are waterfalling into each other is basically what I want it to be. I have been racking my brain trying to figure out the exact configuration of it. Sometimes I've spent several hours just changing the base model before I even put landscaping or water on it because I don't have my pencils to sit down and sketch it out real quick. I can find a pencil, I guess, but it's just kind of like I want my pencils because I know how my process works. So while you go on the updates for this, Ben, I will look for that tutorial I did on sketching and kind of walk everyone through the ideas that I have, not the ideas that I have, the way that I get my ideas out on paper to turn them into bricks. So here we are. That's not the storehouse being attacked by a dragon.
No, I don't have a lot of updates beyond that. My son and daughter and wife were all gone this weekend for Memorial Day to uh, to my dad's house. You know, he lives on a lake. I was stuck here building a superstructure for our Eurobricks build.
Okay.
So I really need miles here in order to continue working on that. It kind of one of the nice things. I had to move the build upstairs, out of my Lego room,
Yeah.
um, and I ended up clearing up some space so Miles and I can work together. But this build here is one that's been bothering me for a very long time. So I wanted to talk about this one a little bit and maybe get some thoughts from you on what I should do, which may include ultimately just scrapping the whole thing.
It
But
looks
this build
cool.
here,
You said
yeah,
that's all I ever say about your sci-fi stuff, so I'm just going to get that part out of the way. It looks cool.
yeah. So sort of here's the thing, and this is where maybe you can help me. This build I did, normally when I build sci-fi spaceships, I
Hmm.
build the ship with a specific purpose in mind. This one, however, I built largely because during the pandemic, maybe you're aware of this, Brickworld did some virtual shows.
We did a couple.
And,
Huh?
yep, on one of the virtual shows, we discussed building what's known as a ship.
A
And ship
seriously
is an
huge.
acronym.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Seriously huge investment in parts,
Go
SHIP.
ahead. Yep. Yep.
And so we were giving a demonstration, or I was giving a demonstration on sort of how I build the interior, and I wanted to have a sort of finished version as well as I was going through it. That's a for anyone who's watching the live stream who's interested. I believe that they can still find that somewhere online. Is that correct, Mark? On the
I,
Brickworld site?
yeah. It's on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, I believe I have. I remember playing it in Milwaukee. I think um, on the spaceship computer.
Yeah.
Um, Mock that I had. And so sort of that's the one thing I'll say about this is unlike a lot of my other ships, this one wasn't really built with a purpose so much as it was built quickly in order to give an example of what a finished or complete build might look like.
Right.
And so sort of what I've struggled with on this is the shape itself
Hmm.
is very basic, right? What I ended up eventually deciding while I was building it was I was going to put all these engines on it to sort of make it some sort of fast, super quick scout ship. Right, that sort of became the idea. And so while I don't
Cool.
mind this section here in the back, the front just seems, I
Ooh.
don't know, just doesn't seem right.
Yeah. The back is beautiful.
Yeah, compared to the front, which is super boring.
The front
Um,
looks like a stud shooter. The front looks like one of those stud shooter things, and that is.
yeah,
It's also. It's also rather. It matches a lot of your other current ships, and I know they're all part of the same fleet.
right.
Um, but I think one of the issues you may be having is that it's just a little.
I'm
Forgive
done.
me for saying this.
I've done too much of it.
It's redundant.
Yeah.
It is,
Yep.
and this side is much more interesting because you have the open hangars, and you've got what is that a communication tower? Like maybe it's a shield generator. What is it?
Yeah, so this here is actually a receiving port here
Uh huh.
that can hook up into my other ships. These
Oh.
would allow it to attach, and then I have these little
Ooh.
scouting drone
Oh, and they move.
um, ships. Yeah, they can detach and go fly about and
Oh,
and and
oh,
go do things.
drones are gonna get you.
You can swoosh
Ah,
them, whatever.
that's terrifying.
And so some of this stuff is okay, and actually this part I built
Yeah.
after the fact in order to try to salvage the design,
Yeah.
but I'm still not sure that it's, where I want it to be.
Show it to me straight down the front again, like I'm being shot by the stud shooter that it is. So I wonder about this one, two, three, four, five, six. This octagonal shape that you have to a lot of your ships. It is kind of like it's kind of like the landscaping slash brick texture wheelhouse that I pull from for everything that I build. Um, and if you're going to bring this year, I don't think there's enough time to incorporate the advice I'm about to give you. But I would say break way outside that somehow. Like, what's the anti hexagon? What's the anti octagon? There we go.
Yeah.
I almost said octagon. I was just like, which one am I going with? Um, and like just a different shape in general, because I think if you're gonna bring this, I would, if you could turn it to profile again, please, if you don't mind. I would raise the height of that base and build something coming out underneath it. I'm imagining like a medical frigate in the Star Wars universe, where there's some other sort of structure underneath that makes it a little bit less matchy matchy. I'm starting to hate this term, but
Yep.
it's what I mean. With the
I,
rest of
I,
your fleet.
yeah. I actually I think you're right. I think what I really need to do if I
Well, thank
wanted
you.
to salvage this
Yeah.
is I think I need to stretch out this neck portion here, right
Okay.
here. Make this part smaller, even if I do keep some sort of similarity in shape, and then
Okay.
have something on the bottom, something that
Yeah.
I haven't really done or explored before.
Yeah.
Because
I think
I do like a lot of this back is actually
that back
pretty
is
cool,
amazing. That back is fantastic.
but I
What?
think it gets lost when it's kind of squished up against the rest of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And what angle are most people going to view it from? Like, unless they're like, you're going to have
Yeah.
a-foles looking at it like crazy. But like, if you're thinking about bringing this to expos and bringing this to other shows with your lugs, and like just to even the public hours for Chicago, a kid's going to run up and be like, "Look, mom, spaceships," and then like run away. So,
Yep.
what do you like about the engine array in back, and how do you incorporate that somewhere else into the design of the ship? Where else can that design go, or something similar to it, on the ship that you'd see in profile? I actually really like the proportions of this, by the way. I'm not sure it necessarily needs the longer neck and the shorter, uh, like snub. What am I saying? The shorter orange section in front. Um, I think it's got good proportions now. I actually find it really compelling visually, because you've
Okay.
got like,
Fair enough.
I think the gray area is in a golden proportion to the orange area, and the where you've got the like the equal parts gray. I like the half and half of that. It looks like something that is like intentional. So I think you nailed proportions on this. I think even if I'm looking at how this could improve just in general shape, again, to set it apart from the rest of your fleet, still match the brand of your fleet, and be a different ship, maybe something come above and below the orange, or and maybe even beyond in the front, so that we're
Yep.
breaking outside of just like there's we just stopped at this orange blunt tube. And this is something I would
Right.
encourage you to do with all of the ships that you build, to avoid this sort of repetitiveness of the fleet, the redundancy. Um, Make it clear, or at least have a thought as you're building it. What is the purpose of the ship? Like, what's this
Right.
ship compared to all the other ships, that makes it what it is, and how does that show itself in the design? Like, if this is a medical frigate, like what makes it look like a medical frigate? If the other one is a some sort of battleship, or like a cruiser, what makes it look different than the others? Especially when it comes to like variation in scale. If you got something that's like a launch pad for an air force, then you want something that's obviously a lot bigger than the rest of the ships in your fleet. Is it a freighter? And then what's the difference in the aerodynamics of the ship, since we don't need to be quite so sleek and maneuverable,
Mhm.
uh, something like that.
Well, and I would agree with you because if you look
Okay.
at the other ships in the fleet,
Yeah.
they all do have a specific purpose. They all do have some variation in shape based on their purpose.
Good.
This one, I feel, really the problem is it's just too generic
Right.
because it was built, sort of in a generic fashion.
Yeah.
It's continued to stay generic,
Yeah.
despite the fact that I've tried to a couple times do some tweaking. Like I slightly changed the shape here in the front,
Yeah.
and I added, this side that you liked better. This was actually a retrofit after the fact,
Okay.
but I still haven't been able to, quite break outside the mental block on this one and get it to look like something else. Right now, it just kind of looks It looks like a spaceship blah, if that's a
Well, and it
if
was a
that's
good
a
purpose
term, you know?
to make it for, because nobody really does this. Like, I think people, if they have the desire to create a ship, a seriously huge investment in parts, that's also a spaceship. There's really no tutorial out there except, of course, for yours. Which, by the way, you can see it on YouTube. I've got it frozen right here. This is part one. There's also part two. It's on the Brickworld YouTube channel. Just look up demonstration how to build a ship. And it should come up for you if you want to check out the entire thing. And so it was a great presentation and a great way to contribute back to the Lego community that loves your ship so much. But it does show that you built it just to make it an easy demonstration, and you haven't gone
Right.
back to finesse it. It sits fine on its own, and it would sit really well with your fleet. But if you want to do something with it, I don't know if it's worth your time for Brickworld this year with as much left as you
It
have to do.
it definitely is not for this year.
Yeah,
It's just one of those things where it's been sitting here, and I take photographs of most. I've taken photographs of most of the things I've finished.
yeah.
This one I've never even bothered to take a photograph of because I've just, I haven't felt like it's worth the effort of even editing the picture, as mean as that sounds about my own ship.
No, I
Um,
understand.
in comparison to the other ones where I've, had a story about what its function is or
Yeah,
whatever else. This one is kind of like I built this to help demonstrate how to build a ship.
yeah.
And, it was a worthwhile endeavor to do that. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know that this is necessarily, representative of me or the way I would um, usually do something like this.
Yeah, and that's like the
Um,
question is like, where's the joy in it? Where's Ben's joy in this build? And that's, I think, what you have to revisit is like, what would make you proud of this? Like, what would make you happy to display it somewhere and edit
yeah,
photos of it? And it served its purpose. Like, it basically, you did it so that you could demonstrate for other people and inspire them how to build a ship. And you probably would have trashed it if it wasn't for the badass tail end of the ship with the engine array.
it,
It's
you're
gorgeous.
100% right. That's the only thing I'm thinking right now is
Uh-huh.
how much I'd like to just rip off the cladding on
Yeah,
this
yeah.
side, stretch it out a little bit, and give it an actual purpose, and keep this back.
I
I
feel
mean,
like that's
that's
what you have to do with
100%
it.
what I want to do.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Then
And
we're in
so
agreement.
that's a July problem, as far as I know.
That you are right. That is a July problem for
Yeah,
sure. Maybe an August problem actually. I think it
yeah,
might be more.
exactly. Yeah, because
I'm
actually,
still going to be building and doing other things, but yeah, I'm not going to be hardcore in June. I need to take a little break and reset myself for sure.
good call. Actually, Ben and I talked about the week after Brickworld. We won't be doing a live stream the week of Brickworld. If we do, it'll be something like Ben and I go through the hall and show you all of the creations. But that's hilarious right now to imagine that I will have that time at any point in the week to walk through the hall with somebody. And not be, even if I did like carve out the time, I'd probably be pulled away. I'd be like, I'm doing a live stream. They'd be like, but I need an extension cord. Sorry, I'm not mocking. I'm not mocking our attendees. I am, but I shouldn't. Is my point. So I apologize for doing that. But so what do we end? We
No,
end on like the
it's true, man. It's true.
it is we end on what, the 18th of June we're done.
Oh man, you're really asking me. Father's Day.
Yeah, 18th. So on the 25th we'll do a live stream. But Ben and I are gonna, we're not gonna build a lot the week after Brickworld. We're gonna take a break and do some rest. And so what we've agreed to do, and I'm mimicking one of my favorite podcasts. It's called Wine and Crime. Ben and I are going to research our own Lego crime cases and present them to each other on the live stream. I don't know what we'll do to make sure we're not doing the same case, but we'll talk about. We'll just do a quick presentation. Ben, obviously I use Ecamm Live, so I don't have the ability for you to share your screen, but you can send me the slides ahead of time. I won't look at them, and we'll have an episode that's just about Ben and I dissecting Lego crimes throughout the world, one each, and we'll see if people like it, and we'll see if we do it again at some point when we're tired of building. And people are watching. I'm not sure how many. We haven't had any comments, but we did get some likes based off of Miles' sketch, actually. So I saw some thumbs flying in
Perfect.
the software. Yeah,
Perfect.
I get emojis
It was,
flying in the software when people like things, and
oh, it was probably Miles watching from his iPad, giving it the like button. He told
Perfect.
me this is the other thing, Mike. Mark, he said he wants to come on the show sometime, and I said, well, Miles, I need you to understand something.
Yeah.
Uh, you haven't done anything in the Lego community to just be able to tell me that you're going to come on the live stream. You need me to invite you, and you need us to have something to talk about, right? And collabing with him is fun, but we have to finish this collab, or he has to present it, or talk about his experience at Brickworld, or something,
Yeah.
you know, to
It's
come
like
on. I don't just sitting here with me just because
right.
he's my son,
Right.
um, thinking that he's now an experienced mock builder from his 1 month build with me.
What Miles
Um,
needs to understand is that we didn't become YouTube sensations overnight. We had to work at building influence. So if Miles can demonstrate
exactly.
that
Yes,
he's built influence and like has a following and has like a name that's worth having him on, then we'll invite him on.
but
This feels awful.
let
I
me
feel
just
gross.
say one thing.
Yeah, yeah,
One
no,
thing.
please. At this point,
Miles says he's got more personality than both of us combined. He will be great on the show.
oh, no kidding.
But I need to invite him on the show. I just
Yeah,
need him to understand that, right?
I'll need one of his parents to sign a talent release form because he is under the age.
Ooh, ooh,
Yeah.
that might be a struggle.
Mm,
His dad's a kind of a pain in the butt about that stuff, and he's an
yeah.
attorney, so I don't know.
Yeah, I would be too. Well, maybe his dad can draw up a talent release form for me as well,
Okay,
and then
okay.
have one of
We'll,
his parents sign it.
we'll have
And
some
that
interesting terms for sure
is right.
in the talent release form.
Cool, cool. All right, so can I solo you while I set up my camera and take my computer off of the build itself?
Well, of course, and while you're doing that, we'll talk about our unofficial sponsor,
Thought
our
you
life
would.
sponsor. So why don't you do that? I was very excited watching YouTube the other day to see a YouTube commercial for our unofficial life sponsor, Dots Homestyle Pretzels. In fact,
Unofficial life
I
sponsor.
they are our unofficial life sponsor.
Yeah.
In fact, I believe the terminology used in the ad was that they're sensationally seasoned. I believe that's what I texted you after seeing it.
Accurate.
So here we go. The
My
home style. They have a little bit of a bite, a little bit of spice to them. These are the original seasoned.
my tripod is
Which
stuck on an
I love.
empty bag of them actually.
Oh, very good. They also come in other flavors now. The home style is still um, very excellent, but I also am a sucker for the limited time flavor, um, cinnamon sugar. I believe, Mark, you told me the other day that you are up to now 500 subscribers on YouTube,
Oh yes,
on the
that
site.
there's some celebration, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think Dot will be pounding on your door in a matter of weeks, begging for us to talk more about the sensationally seasoned Dot's pretzels. I don't know why they would, fork over any cash for a sponsorship when we're going to
Right.
sponsor them anyway. But
Well, we're just going to promote them for free like crazy. But yeah, I was
absolutely,
that deserves a shout out too. Is thank you everybody for getting us over 500 subscribers. Thanks.
yeah, it's the hopefully the first of many milestones, but a good one nonetheless.
Well, the other milestone we had is I think 90 people watched last week's stream.
Wow. All right, closing in on 100.
Yeah.
You can't start off with the big time views. You got to build. You've got to build, and we took just like a Lego ship, right? One
Yeah.
block at a time. It doesn't come out like this. You gotta put in a little effort to build one up.
Organic growth. All right, you ready to see how much work I have left to do and how it's not going to get done before Brickworld Chicago?
Oh, I am extremely ready.
There you go. Here is where we're at. We
Ooh,
are.
giving you
Ooh,
an ooh today.
ooh! I got an
Ooh,
ooh. Well, and like the stream is up here, so I'm kind of like, look, hey, it's me watching me watching me watching me. Um, so I kind of have, like I'm really out of space here. However, I think I do need to bring it back a little bit so you can see everything that's going on. And that would include dragging this along with the empty bag of Dot's Home Style pretzels. This is the base of the pools. And if you can see over here, this is where it's going to, I moved it back a little bit from where it originally was. So we've got the, what do you call that little viaduct thing?
Oh yeah, in this particular case, it was like a culvert.
Culvert.
Though we got some other advice as to what it might be properly called, but culvert was sort of the first thing that came to my mind.
I think culvert is correct. And the person who said viaduct said that if it was, it wasn't just a giant tube, um, it would be a viaduct. So this is the basic shape that I want in the pools that are outside the orchard. And this is as far as I've gotten. Let me bring some light over here. So maybe you can see in this little cave. Stonework and water is time consuming, especially when you get bogged down in details and want to perfect everything instead of just saying it's good enough. You got to go. You got to build the sides of a ship, and there ain't time. So I've got my little cave there. I'm liking what I'm liking right now about it. And it's hard to tell what's happening at the second level there because I have a temporary waterfall to see how far I want the water to come out, or if I just make that a little cliffside into the wall of the Fabuland City Garden up to the orchard. Um, but I'm liking the texture I am getting, and I'm thinking I'm going to be mimicking a lot of it on repeat up the entire creation to save myself some time. And I can do a little bit of adjusting here so you can see things a little bit better. And if I stop here, oh look, there's our other unofficial sponsor, Zevia Zero Calorie Soda, and that is the Dr. Zevia flavor, my favorite. It's how I survive. So, all right, I think that's about as much of it as I can explain. I can move you around it if you want to see more details of it, but that's as much as I've been able to do in a week. And
Mm-hmm.
there's quite a bit left to do. I could probably even move the computer if you want to see what I'm planning with the top there.
I've got a pretty good grasp on this here. I can tell, that obviously there's, plenty of unfinished area that you're working on here. I do like sort of this the stepped multi waterfall type approach here.
Nice.
I am curious to know right underneath the computer, it looks like you've got two entries or two exits um,
Yes.
facing out here. One
I'm
one going into sort of the middle pool, and then one going down into the deeper pool.
I'm wondering about that too. I will probably knock something over as I do this. It'll probably be the camera. Whoops.
Don't lose the live stream, Mark.
Well, I'm gonna lose something. It's probably my mind. All right. Looks like everything survived so far.
All right.
So this is kind of what we're seeing here. Is like so the orchard is on this level. So somewhere up here is going to be those cherry trees that I've shown off so much in here that I haven't actually built the orchard itself yet, but that'll be over in this area, if you guys can see my hand moving. So it's going to come
Yep.
across here, and outside the orchard is going to be a little romantic picnic area that goes directly into where the waterfalls come down. I don't know if it's going to come off the side here. It's not going to be this severe on the front, because I don't want it to quite be bonkers like this. This is more for a side view to show movement of water. I don't want it to look like this from the front. So I'm having some trouble even making water. But the idea is this is a series of pools that are connected by waterfalls. So here's a pool, here's a pool, here's a pool, right? And then this is going to be like a massive pool that comes all the way down to the gate. A little walkway that goes in front of the gate. We'll have a little bridge that goes to the egress for this water flow. And I'm planning on here and here doing some more foliage. These cliffs should be covered in this foliage. I want it to be like this foliage started here in the waterfall area and grew onto these walls. Again, this is something I will probably build on site by Ben's advice, so it looks as beautiful as this. It doesn't fall apart in the car. So there's a lot.
Good
There's
idea.
a lot of little work to be done that I can't wait to get to because I love that part. I think I might to cut off the water flow and give myself less visual headache with how to make this look good from the front because I don't like all of these cheese slopes. I may make this a little wider as well. So we've only got these smaller, calmer waterfalls coming out. And I think I have another section for back here. Um, and so I think there will be like the largest waterfall happening here, just to the right of the logo. Back here, there'll be like a massive waterfall coming down this way into this pool, and that's the plan. And it took me, I can't tell you how many different configurations of the pools I had this week, and it was just me tearing one down, building up another tower, moving it over. But this is where I landed. I really like the proportions of this. I've got like my golden proportion heights from one pool to the next, and I'm trying to stick with it with as higher as I get with the what are they called, the rock work. I'm running out of green slopes. I'm definitely out of green curb slopes.
Yeah, you just have to make it up as you go along now, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I've got portions that I've like torn out because they weren't working, so I can take things off that. But I'm also just hanging on to this in case, like, what if I can use it somewhere and just throw it in real quick. Although at this point I've reconfigured it enough where I don't think this will go anywhere. However, I'd be remiss at this point to tear anything apart because there's not a lot of time.
yeah. What about the transition between the pools and the pathway over on the right?
So that is one of the big things that I've been struggling with, and I think the culvert is actually going to help with that. So what I'll probably do here, let me take your face out of there real quick so we can see it a little bit better. Where'd the mouse go? It fell asleep. I don't want to click on anything accidentally. I love these songs that we sing. Let's take you out there. So right here, the culvert. I am planning on building a stone wall, like a retaining wall along here. Because obviously, if this was a natural pool in the first place, for them to put the vineyard and the orchard here, and to get this the pool that they've used in the garden, and get the culvert to uh, uh, what is that called? Bring water to the orchard and vineyard,
Yeah,
irrigate.
and irrigate. Yep.
They would have had to build over other pools and fill this in. And so a retaining wall makes perfect sense because they're controlling where the water is going. So there will be a dark gray. Well, actually, I don't know yet. I know that the culvert itself will be just because I've fallen in love with that. And I'm going to have to build some in there. I'm going to have to take out these green posts and make sure people, when they look down to see what's in there, they see water and they see stone. Because I can't have it unrealistic, of course. And so I originally had I had something. It was like this, but it wasn't this. Actually, maybe this will work here now. I had something where it was natural and um, Fabuland person made, where it was like there was cliff and rock that kind of like went along the side of the garden. And I still like the idea. I just felt like when it turned into a wall, like a retaining wall, made a little bit more sense that the wall itself, this wall to the orchard entrance, would would stop the way it does. Like it would be built directly into the cliffs, which it still can. I mean, I guess this doesn't really need to be, and I can change the shape of this so it comes out a little further. This wasn't there. This wasn't what was there. But something like this, I think, is a possibility still. Again, I'm not sure if I do that I would put any water coming down. If I did, it would just be a small trickle because, like, question I have then for you is how realistic is it if there is a if the cliffs have been carved out here, like what did it? Like, did the water stop for some reason? What caused it to stop flowing here? And I can always do because I have a what is this light azure, medium azure, not my favorite word to say for whatever reason. I hate pronouncing that word out loud. Um,
Hmm.
but the
Some shade of light blue. Let's just go with that.
so I can change the shape of this. And I can even have like different levels of this stuff around so that it's kind of like trickling down and bouncing off, and so this comes out more instead of being an inverted sort of cavern. Like it can be more of a stepped kind of like this whole thing is, but like just in miniature, like mini pools coming down this way, like a waterfall that's a little bit more um, carved out in steps instead of like more severe steps, like tiny steps. Like I can do some little waterfalls to make
Hmm.
this a little more gentle stuff coming down. Um, to transition into the garden itself. I said a lot about that. What is your
Yep.
what were your thoughts?
Yeah, when I look at that there, when you have the big waterfall, where you have it sitting now, it seems like it would be, where you've temporarily placed that falling water. It seems like it would be too violent there to be right
Yeah,
next to the walking path.
thank you. Agreed. Thank you.
Like it would just be splashing everywhere, and it would be a big mess.
Yeah, and I feel like it would
Um,
erode whatever retaining wall had been put in there, and then start to
right,
erode the vineyard away.
right. So I think that having kind of the two up front here,
Yeah,
side by side, one falling deeper than the other, is kind
yeah,
of interesting. So I don't mind that. I just think, yeah, that on that far right side, you might want to do something else. It's a pretty severe drop to be sort of right
be
next to
nothing.
where they're
I know.
trying to build that.
I know, and it wasn't there originally. I had that pool wrapping all the way around, and I just didn't really know how to transition it then into the orchard. I had okay, so this was the history of it all, and I suppose I can move this back again because I've already moved it back once. But if this was the entire back of the orchard and waterfall, I could bring this pool to this edge, and so the waterfall happens next to it. So if it was like, let's say for example, let's say it ended up being here. All right, my husband's home, so we could find out if I've killed the puppy or not. My puppy's sick,
Mm,
everybody, so that's one of the reasons I'm not fun today. Um, I refuse to be fun. Um, so if it was all the way back here, and this pool came to here, so let's see. I got this. Actually, let's check it out where it is now. Then, so if it was here, I like the way it looks through the camera right now. Actually,
mm-hmm.
I think I chose the right configuration of pools. I'm happy with it. And just because I built a section with a really tall waterfall behind it doesn't mean I need to use it. It's just the structure. So if this came to here, and then the waterfall came down next to this wall, and again, it doesn't need. Let's put this on something. Hold on. Stud onto something. Are there any studs here?
Well, I'm not even sure you need it to go all the way over there. From if you moved that back,
Yeah,
um, and I don't know what would be between the wall entrance to the orchard and the waterfall, if it would just be cliffside or what it would be. But having kind of the sideways waterfall there wouldn't bother me. That's actually kind of interesting. I think there it looks far less severe because it's not just splashing all over the path now. You know.
yeah. Well, I mean, so the orchard, like, ugh, hold on. Let's see if I can even do this. The orchard itself is going to be like here in this area. So it's going to be at this height. So there'll still be something else blocking that off. So these trees are going to start at this level right above the entire vineyard. So that's what's going to be back there. And
Okay.
so I have something at that height already, which is why I moved this to where I moved it. And I, like I said, this doesn't need to be this here for and it falls. Of course, it falls
Oh
apart.
no.
Whatever's going to happen. Um, the what's it called? Uh, uh, um, if I, yeah, if I if I went to a more gently stepped down waterfall, I think it would be fine where it was. Because
Yep.
of where I moved it, it is off by everything's on a base plate to take. Everything's like two base plates thick. And this is off by half a base plate, so I will have some awkwardly shaped or some inconsistently shaped sections of this. But that's not a reason not to do what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, no, I think if you pulled this back forward, um, a gentle falling waterfall, like a ping ponging one, where the flow isn't as severe, would be just fine. It was really just this super tall waterfall blasting down right next to the path.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
Um,
that's why I shouldn't even have left it there. It just
that
drove me
kind of
nuts in other
seems
places.
a little, little extreme versus some other
Oh,
things,
it'll be here. I
right?
want this to come out.
Right.
So yeah, I started building cliffs kind of the opposite way I normally do, where they step down, which would be nice if it was like a more gentle sort of like canyon area, but I want it to be something where like or like a more severe waterfall with like a gently sloping canyon would be more of the step out like we have down here. But for this area, I wanted it to be like it steps underneath, so they're coming out as they go up, and I like what's been happening with that, especially like down here in the cave area. Um, Again, I just let me just take the water out of here. It's
Yeah,
time.
I
It's
kind of
like
like that too. When it's kind of you kind of see it both ways. Like
oh
I've
man,
been to waterfalls, where
yeah,
it is sort of a more gentle downslope, but I've also seen ones where you kind of get a cave behind the waterfall
yes,
because it comes pouring out, and when it hits down below, it kind of splashes back, and that sort of erodes the landing deeper and deeper and deeper as it goes. So that's kind of a cool and different look too.
and that's kind of what
Um,
I was looking at for inspiration for how these would carve out. Is like I'm imagining for sake of needing something realistically geologically happening in this was at the Niagara Rapids, where it was after the Ice Age, all of the I forget the type of rock, whatever type of rock it was dragged over all the limestone in that upper Midwest area and into Canada. And so when the lakes started pouring through it and back to each other, um, it carved through the limestone and carved away all of the other rock that had been dropped on top of it. And it makes really interesting shapes. And it's hard for the water to cut through the limestone at an even rate because of how fast those Niagara Rapids move. And so everything's very precarious. And it's like, whittling away at the bottom of the cliffs that are still like hanging out over the Niagara River. And, stuff falls into it all the time. But I love that shape because it just looks otherworldly. If you've ever been there, um, the rapids themselves are mesmerizing with just the power that they're moving through that canyon. Um, and so that's kind of like the look I'm going for. So I mean, the other thing I'm doing is mixing the green and gray, and again, I'm out of green, so I'm hoping it'll all look. And again, I'm going to be putting foliage on top of all this anyway. But I'm gonna like down here, I'm gonna switch this to gray. Like that's the next step for this level.
mhm.
Is for this to come down to gray and kind of switch the way it hangs out underneath this, so that this is more of a. There's going to be like an archway here that the water's flowing underneath, but this cliff is hanging out over on top of it. That's kind of I'm going for like an inverse cliff than I've built before.
Yeah, I think after all that we need to rename the show "Think Outside the Rocks." That was
Nice.
a fascinating geology lesson that we just learned here.
Well, and as much as I build like landscaping, and I'm getting really excited about doing more and more of it, and trying to like push the envelope and do different things, we can have like a Think Outside the Rocks episode once a month. So I'm just
It's
every week.
it's amazing, quite honestly. Rock work, and it's even called that on um, it's even what we refer to it as, especially in say the castle realm,
Yeah,
and in Fabuland. I mean,
yeah,
rocks are a staple in the Lego community for sure.
they're here to stay.
Um, yeah, rock work isn't going anywhere. So
Nuh-uh.
think outside the rocks episode is
Mm-hmm.
it's totally doable. There are so many different techniques and ways that people do rocks.
Well,
Um,
do you remember Puzz 3D? Are you old
yes,
enough? Yeah.
I had a Puzz 3D Star Destroyer suspended
Ooh,
from my suspended from my ceiling in my room when I was a kid for
I
many
didn't know they
years.
had a Star Destroyer.
Oh, absolutely did. The Puzz 3D, for those who don't know, is a 3D puzzle, as you might imagine,
Google
made
it.
with like
Bonkers.
a foam core type puzzle piece,
Yeah.
and construct it into a 3D shape, um, with sort of these I don't remember what you'd call them, but corners basically that would press together to make a 3D shape, sort of a valley and peak type
Oh,
design to allow you to push it all together.
so they had an like a spinoff um, that was Puzz 3D Sculptor. Um,
Mm.
and so this is what I'm referring to.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like so it was wafers. Like there's the whoops, I'm clicking on the here's a Tutankhamun. Well, yeah, it's harder to tell. Hold on. You see where it's so it's like it's little layers. So you had to it
Yep.
just you just opened up this box and it just had like wafers. So each line in here was like a separate piece, and you had to figure out exactly where it went. It was a fun puzzle. I did a few of them in college. Oops, I keep clicking on the. You can see a
So you
little
had to
better here.
sort of had to stack them. It looks like,
Yes, exactly.
sort of in the right order, as opposed to the
This,
classic Puzz 3D, where it was more like a puzzle you built,
yes,
different shaped sizes or whatever, and kind of pressed them together into a 3D shape.
yeah, this is a little
Um,
bit. Let me see if I can find it. Give me a bigger picture, folks.
there you
That's
go, Mount Rushmore.
what I'm talking about. So each one of those layers is a separate piece, and you just stack them together to see if you can get it right. And it's a pain in the butt if you miss a piece or if you got them out of order because then you have to try to lift the entire thing off of it. My point is, thank you for going down that little rabbit hole with me. A lot of the rock work I've done in the past, and actually, to be honest, a lot of the rock work that I see is like wafers like that, where it's just like round layer, round layer, round layer, round layer. So I'm trying to break outside of that with like dropping things in different directions in places so that it looks like more organic rock in the actual way that rock sits on top of other rock, because most of it is subduction of plate tectonics, where they're sitting on like different layers of the Earth's crust. They're sitting on top of each other because they've been pushed out of the ground and dumped on top of each other. So I'm trying to go for like that sort of look, but also here we have erosion. We have there is a body of water up somewhere up here that is flowing out to the Fabuland Ocean, and to make its way there, it has to cut through all this rock. And what does that look like when water's been cutting through rock? So that's the torture I put myself through. Um, and look at this, someone's here. It's Titanium J. Greetings to you,
Yes.
Jay. Glad you're here. Very happy someone's watching. We're not doing this for no reason. So to close out the week, if you don't mind, I'm going to show you what Ben was talking about. Um, this is my process for designing uh, anything. I like to sketch it first. Um, I like to build from imagination, and what I do in in figuring out what's in my imagination, because it's hard to pin it down sometimes, I find I find inspiration on Pinterest or through like game concept art on what looks like what's in my head, and then I take those images and make like a mood board or just use Pinterest and start sketching. This might be a little bit hard to see. If you're not into sketching, you can go ahead and leave. We'll see you next week. Um, if you are into sketching, or if you've ever been interested in, because a lot of people, when I tell them that I sketch everything out and I can talk to them about how, they're like, "Oh, I don't draw." Well, you might be able to. I would venture to guess that you've never tried. And this right here is my first step. Always, again, it might be a little bit hard to see, but I made a Cartesian grid out of a very lightweight pencil. I go through how to make a Cartesian grid. It's not actually not even fully Cartesian. It's just basically a perspective grid that I made with a straight edge and some pencils. And then I start going in and I say, this is my basic ideas. This was a castle and I wanted it to have this basic footprint. So I put in these squares. I treat this as I'm building. I treat each one of those grid squares as a base plate. So I'm like, if this is the basic area, this is what I want the model size to be. So I put in some basic footprint shapes there, and I start building up from those base plates as like what's the structure going to look like. I start doing my pretentious golden proportion stuff and start to draw in some landscaping. Like, okay, if that's the building, how far out do I want the terrain to go from the building? So I start penciling that in, start moving buildings around. This is why I use pencil because it's easy to erase and start over. Start to shade things in. I use Copic markers, COPIC. If you're into sketching, you'll love Copic markers because they blend really well. You can even erase them. And I threw in some staircases. How are people going to get around this castle? So now I'm adding some height. I didn't like that building, so I moved it over, and I used that grid again to find out exactly where it would go if I wanted more space for the staircases or if I wanted to widen out my little kingdom. Throwing the ruler on there because I'm going to start checking proportions. Found 30 millimeters, and so I found the golden proportion of that, 24.5 is that? Or is that, did I do a ratio there? And then I figured out what I wanted it to be. I added the two together is what I did to get the height of the next tower. So that it's automatically golden by finding the height of the other two structures. And then I took that 54.8, I multiplied it by 1.6 and found 98.9 bricks would have to be that back tower. And that's ridiculous. Started to play with it a little bit, but I eventually erase it, start putting some darker lines in, putting my measurements in darker ink as well, starting to fill in some detail. Let's see, I eventually get rid of that tower, like I said, and then I get to a point where I'm adding detail and I'm just not seeing enough. So I have to get my base plates back by putting it in with a blue pencil to find out where the base of everything is so I can keep track of it. And I'm not seeing everything I want. So here I've gone and I start to bring the size up. I start to scale it to a bigger size. So I double the amount of the footprint and I make myself some squares to be like, this is what I want to see. And I start going through and putting my detail back in the way I had it in the smaller sketches. And once I like what I have, start to ink it in. So here's what I came up with. This is what I wanted my castle to look like. I got the stairs back in there. I started putting some terrain in. I'm shading everything. I'm making it look beautiful as a sketch so it inspires me to build. And then this is what came to Brickworld. Because I ran out of time. So when people are talking about like they're coming to Brickworld for the first time and they're thinking about bringing a display, I would say bring a mock, bring a habitat. It takes a long time to develop a display. This is this. This is this. And what it ended up being, of course, was just this this building off to the right was all I really had time to do. I didn't have time to do the two towers. I didn't have time to do the smaller building. Um, but give yourself time. Displays develop over time, and so if you do want to bring a display for the first time to Brickworld or any show, even if it's a local library show with your lug, you've never displayed in public before. Give yourself time to develop what you want, and so give yourself bite-sized pieces because you might see amazing things brought to Brickworld every year, but it doesn't mean they made it just that year. A lot of this stuff occurs over time, and you need time to develop it. And Rome wasn't built in a day, so I don't want to be too cheesy, but too late. I already have been. Um, so all right, let's take this out of there. I guess that's all we have for this week. Did you have anything else for my build? Did you want to look at it again?
No, I mean, that was your sketch, and this is you don't have to go that far. This can be your inspiration too, right?
Absolutely, it can.
And this is great too. Anything that gives you the inspiration to build is good inspiration.
Yeah, and you can do the same without pencils and sketchbook and all that stuff. You can sketch in Studio. You can sketch in bricks. You can do micro scale versions of what you want to see in a medium that you already understand. You know how to build Lego. You understand what microscale is. So if you're building it out in just like in little stacks of 2x4 bricks to represent what you want it to be eventually, that's also a sketch you can work off of. So find your favorite way to plan and to get all your ideas out into brick. And yeah, we'll be here for you to show you how our processes of putting too much detail in and torturing ourselves on spending too much time on every little detail. But also, it definitely encourage you to find somebody who you trust to what do you say to give you constructive criticism, like we're doing on the show. Uh, Not only to show you our process, but to show you how helpful it can be to have another set of eyes on what you're building, um, and just to
Yeah, and sometimes it's just to confirm what you're already thinking too.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I mean that happens a lot with us. It's we both can kind of right away see it and just say
yeah,
there's something off here, and we both sort of have that feeling. And if someone else says to you, "Yeah, I agree with you," you just need to take a step back, and then
yeah,
sometimes it just clicks right away as to just that little confirmation that yes, that needs a little bit of a tweak, and
yeah.
you're off and running again.
And that's one of the nuances of being like open to constructive criticism, is that once you get a lot of it, you start to realize that you don't necessarily need all of it, and that like people's opinions aren't always in line with what you actually want. So taking constructive criticism is great. Being open to it is, in my opinion, a very positive quality. But a lot of times you're going to get things that you just don't need. And so like being able to like be like, okay, I understand what that person's perspective is, but it's not right. That advice is not right for what I want to do. You don't need to take all constructive criticism once you find yourself open to it. You kind of need to pick and choose and figure out what does help you and what really you should just discard. So Ben's really good at that, discarding
And
constructive
the
criticism.
discarding part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a talent you have. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's been a
you've tried
been a
most
long
of what
week
I've
for you,
suggested.
Mark, isn't
It's been a very long day. I felt like I was killing it this week until today. And it was just kind of like I knew I had a lot to do. I knew there was a lot going on. I had the house to myself because Matt's out of town, and then the puppy was sick, and my world kind of fell apart. Where I was just like, obviously it was something where I think she just needed her anal glands expressed, which I didn't know was a thing until today. And she's still not doing great, but she's definitely doing better. But also, it's just like I keep checking her. Like, did I kill her? Is she dead? Oh my god, I can't live without her. And so yeah, it's left me a little bit out of sorts. So I'm glad we're ending earlier than we normally do because I had to go check on her to make sure she's still alive. I'm sure she is, but it's just been eating away at me this entire time. Is the puppy alive? So, and should I be taking her to the emergency vet? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll find out. We'll
Well,
see what else. The
and
night's not over by a long shot.
yeah. Well, in 3 weeks from now, we'll have our feet kicked up. We'll be done with Brickworld Chicago. We'll be probably hanging out together.
Yeah, let's hope
Well,
so.
actually, we probably won't be together. I'll be hanging out with Matt, and you'll be dealing with last minute Brickworld stuff.
I
Um, but the event will be closed. That's the hope, at least, right?
Yeah, hopefully the truck will be packed by this time next week. I'm sorry, 3 weeks from now.
Right. 3 weeks from
Whatever
now.
it is, I
Three
don't know.
weeks.
Where am I? Where
Uh,
are you people?
that 3 weeks. 3 weeks means only 2 weekends left for building.
I
So
know. You gonna be here next
you got
weekend?
to get started.
You be here on
I
the
should
third?
be.
I will
I
too.
should be.
All right, so
Yep.
we'll see everyone next week. And in the meantime, don't forget there are no mistakes, just happy accidents. Good night, everybody.
And I